Absolutely. Councilmember Baldino?
Here.
Councilmember Giroux?
Here.
Councilmember Persick? Here. Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel?
Here.
And Mayor Boyles.
Here. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to have the invocation led by Pastor Jared McKenna of the Bridge Church and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Baldino. If you could all please rise.
If you guys will bow your heads with me in prayer. God, we thank you for tonight. Father, we thank you for our council. Lord, I pray just a blessing over them, Lord, that you have placed them in these roles, Father, that you have ordained this moment. So, Lord, we thank you for the wisdom that they have, Father. We thank you for our first responders, our firefighters, our police officers, Lord, our teachers. Father, we just pray a blessing over this city. May you continue to be glorified in everything that we do, Lord. We love you and we praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Pastor McKenna. And thank you, Councilmember Baldino. Okay, we have a special presentation this evening. It's going to be read by Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whereas Black History Month affords special opportunities to become more knowledgeable about Black heritage and to honor the many Black leaders who have contributed to the progress of our nation. And whereas Dr. Woodson initiated Black History Week on February 12th, 1926, and for many years, the second week of February, chosen so as to coincide with the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln, was celebrated by African Americans in the United States. And whereas in 1976, as part of the nation's bicentennial, Black History Week was expanded and became established as Black History Month, and is now celebrated all over North America. And whereas such knowledge can strengthen the insight of all of our citizens regarding the issues of human rights, the great strides that have been made in the crusade to eliminate the barriers of equality of minority groups, and the continuing struggle against racial discrimination and unconscious bias. Now, therefore, the mayor and members of the City Council of the City of El Segundo, California, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2024 Black History Month, and urge all citizens to join together in making this period of rededication to the principles of justice and equality for all people. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I believe accepting this, we have LaTanya Fair.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you guys for this opportunity to accept this proclamation. This day is really special for me because this is my late mother's 75th birthday, so I know she's looking down on me with pride today. I stand here as the first Black Deputy City Treasurer here at El Segundo, and also the first Black female leader of the Supervisory Labor Union. So I'm making my own little strides here in history as well. Black History Month is not just a thing of the past. It didn't stop when Martin Luther King had a dream or when Ruby Bridges integrated the public schools for the first time. African Americans are still making notable contributions even today, such as Ruth E. Carter. She's a costume designer. She's the first Black woman to win 2 Oscars for the Black Panther movie, both in 2018 and 2023. Erin Jackson, the first Black female to win individual gold in speed skating, just in 2022. And Breonna Davis, the first Black woman in a NASCAR Cup Series pit crew, which happened in 2021. So the doors have been open, and I will leave the door open for those behind me as well. Thank you.
Okay, guys, everybody's looking good. Here we go. That's perfect. 1, 2, and one more, and just one more. Thank you so much.
All right, now is the time and place for public communications. And Madam Clerk, how many cards do we have this evening?
We have one for public communications, and then we'll have two for the public hearing,
Okay.
item number 11.
Yeah,
we'll
so if you're here
start-
for item 11, that'll come later. If you're here for public communications, or who is speaking for public communications, sorry?
I hope I don't mess this up. Sean Bryan?
Yeah, please, thank you.
Thank you. Actually, we're not from El Segundo, we're from Texas. So, wanted to stop in and say how we have family that live out here. We come out a lot. For some reason, we always end up in El Segundo. It's the greatest small town in the biggest city in the world. So, thank you guys, thank everybody here. We literally love coming here to visit. And in Texas, oil country, we created the greatest green energy product ever. So we created a solar energy concept that we've left at the front desk for your clerks to give to you. But it's very different because what we can bring is solar energy to any place in the world that's battery operated solar energy, and it's deployable anywhere. And in the brochures that we gave you, if you'll take 5 minutes, I know you guys are super busy, but if you'll take a few minutes and read it, you'll see that we've created anything from a food kitchen to water salinization to a command level for you guys. Our main goal is first responders, to give them off-grid, complete off-grid, no generators, no diesel, none of that, but to bring an energy source that you don't have to depend on anybody, no matter what natural disaster we live with or what the problem may be. So thank you for giving us a minute. That was pretty quick, actually. Things in Texas go a little bit slower than that, but we're very thankful that you guys took a minute. What we're doing on the 20th, because the 19th is President's Day, on the 20th, we're actually bringing the prototype out here. And what we were going to ask of you, ladies and gentlemen, is that if we could bring it's called MOSH, Mobile Off-Grid Sun Harvester, bring it to El Segundo, give me a parking lot, let me show you how you can recreate EV chargers that you don't have to pay an electric bill. Let me show you how our first responders can have energy going to their mobile command centers without having to plug into anything. Just give us a few minutes in a parking lot and let us show you what we can do. We would gratefully appreciate it. So that's it. You know what? Get back to your politics. And by the way, we love El Segundo. We love the Standard and the Tavern. Yeah, that breakfast and dinner. And we've been doing this for years. My buddy's the coach at the Lakers, so we come out to see him, and we always end up in El Segundo. And God, what a great town. What a great town. So thank you, guys.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor, thank you.
I'll have Daryl George will probably follow up with you
Yes,
later.
and,
Thank you.
and we left some pamphlets up front. Yes, sir.
I'll weigh in that I know the city manager and Public Works and Emergency Management have seen some of the copy of this because I know the Bryans have sent it in. I will also say I cannot be unbiased in this because Sergeant Bryan and I fought in Iraq together, so we go back
You know, I'm
a
sorry
long
to
way.
throw the bald-headed
So
guy, but he and I served in Iraq together, and he's okay. He's you know what? He's a great American. But thank you, sir, and thank you guys. Thank you so much for your time. Okay. All right.
So is that it, Madam Clerk? Just the one? Okay, that concludes public communications. I don't think there's anything for you to follow up on, Mr. George.
No, I wish I could bottle up some of that positive energy and put it on one of our little clips. But thank you, Mr. Bryan, and we'll follow up with the brochures, and I'll chat with both our police and fire chiefs. Thank you.
Great, thanks. All right, for item A, we're gonna, as normal, read all ordinances and resolutions on the agenda by title only. We'll vote on that in a second, but also I'd like to add that due to an emergency order occurring after the agenda was posted, that we take some time to consider that as well, following on the agenda. So if I have a motion to approve all that as stated, do I have a motion to approve?
Persick, so moved.
Thank you. Have a second?
Baldino seconds.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 5-0. So the title of this resolution is, it's a resolution confirming the existence of a local emergency due to early February 2024 storms and ratifying the city manager's administrative declaration of emergency, which was dated February 4th, 2024. We have several things in front of us, and Daryl, just a little bit of background. The emergency order will do what for us again? Could you just give us a little context, please?
Yes, Mayor. The emergency order will actually allow us to do a number of things. It will allow us to request assistance under the disaster response mechanisms that are established through the California Disaster Assistance Act. It gives the city manager basically empowers the city manager to establish rules and regulations which are important for the protection of life and property during these emergencies. And that's why we're here tonight with subsequent confirmation by the city council. So the city manager does have the authority, which I did do on the 4th, to establish declare the emergency, and that's why we're here tonight for you to ratify. And it also authorizes the city manager to implement certain measures and actions necessary to safeguard public health and safety, which we did do over the last 72 hours. And then finally, it also allows us to facilitate the adoption of immediate ordinances, rules, and resolutions without prior notice of those meetings. So it's really allows us to act very quickly during these difficult times.
Thank you, Mr. George. So first one is to approve a motion determining that an emergency situation exists due to the effects of the early February 2024 severe weather event, to authorize consideration of this report and proposed resolution pursuant to Government Code 54954.2. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, we have a second.
First and second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 5-0. Second one is to, we're gonna get a report from Todd DeVell, right? Is Todd
Yes.
here? Emergency
Yeah, he
Management
is here.
Coordinator? Great,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, and the honorable members of the City Council, thank you so much. And a little bit of what I was going to talk about here is the importance of ratifying that proclamation, and you guys have taken care of that, and I appreciate that, and what this does for the community. So over the past few days, the community is prepared for a significant weather event, and as you all have been probably participating in that weather event, whether you wanted to or not. It started to begin on February 1st, 2024, and I stand here today to shed some light on some of the actions that we've taken prior to and during the storm. So there's our dedicated firefighters and police officers and members of the public works storm response team and various members of the different departments within the city of El Segundo. We're here to ensure the safety and the well-being of our residents. The activation of the fire department's emergency operations center marked one of the onsets of the monitoring the impending storms. And so we recognize the gravity of the potential of the storm that was coming in, and we early on leaned forward and opened up our operations center to a level 3, which is the basic level, the lowest level that there is. This early activation allowed us to coordinate efforts, not only with just city departments, but also with the Area G coordinators and with the County of Los Angeles and the National Weather Service. During the lull of the storm, our city personnel continued to work for preparedness and making purchases and things that we needed to do to specifically respond. This happened on Friday and Saturday, so we didn't just stop. We've made efforts to rent sump pumps, for instance, to help out with community members' homes that potentially could have been impacted by this storm. And also other additional, we made the decision with the fire chiefs to add an additional engine on with 3 different additional firefighters to take care of those hazardous calls, such as power lines down, sump pump issues and things like this, and which we did go through. So our firefighters responded to 32 calls over the few days here with mitigation to flooding into homes and into businesses. Also, some various traffic collisions that were caused due to careless drivers driving in this weather, and then also fire response and hazardous conditions. So moreover, I'm immensely proud of the seamless collaboration between our city departments, the fire department, the emergency management division, with the critical stakeholders such as public works, law enforcement, and the city communications. And together we orchestrated not just the response, but also a public education campaign on things like where to get sandbags when we had them, and also the safety messages to our members of the community, such as stay home during the weather, because we don't want you to be involved in traffic collisions. In times like this, our community resilience and unity really shines through. And I really want to point out our ham radio operators, our RACES team, that activated on Sunday with us, and they were with us every single day. And what a wonderful way to show community support by having volunteers working those 12-hour shifts right next to us. So obviously, we went through the idea of recognizing the importance of ratifying the proclamation. I do, again, appreciate that so much. And together, we're going to become a more resilient city, and we're going to be able to be prepared to force any other kind of storm that comes our way. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Mr. DeVoe. It's great having you. Just last week, we had that emergency or disaster council meeting, which is perfect timing. Any questions for Mr. DeVoe regarding the last few days? No?
Do we know how long will we have the EOC up and running?
We're going to close it tonight at 10 o'clock.
Anything you learned as an opportunity, things we could do better in the last 48 hours, 72 hours?
Yeah, like always, there's always things that we're going to learn from these activations and from drills. And we're working diligently to have a closer communications group within the city. I know that the city manager was talking and communicating with you all on a regular basis. Communicating amongst ourselves is one of those things that we're working, and one of the projects that we're working on is utilizing the software called Titan HST, which the city has purchased. And so we have plans on implementing that for help with communication within the city staff. I think we did a great job communicating outside. One of the things that I think we need to lean forward on as well, when we're talking specifically about sandbags, right, that seems to be the topic of du jour, rightfully so, is having the communication early on with people to get the sandbags and having a better understanding of how many that are needed. By the way, just to let you know, we did run out of sandbags, but the county ran out of sandbags. So I actually put a request into the county for additional support, and they couldn't fulfill that request due to the fact that there weren't any. So it's not just us that had that problem. So just kind of thinking about that.
How many sandbags do we give out?
Thousands.
Thousands, right?
Thousands.
Could we at least not have bags available so people could go get sand from from another location?
Absolutely. We did have flat bags available, and we did issue flat bags as well.
Okay. Because even if we stored some extra bags, at least we have them in our.
Yes, and we did give that, and we help people find sand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. All right, do we have a motion or do we have consensus to receive and file? Yes, okay. Item 3, adopt a resolution confirming the existence of a local emergency due to early February 2024 storms and ratifying the city manager's administrative declaration of emergency dated February 4th, 2024. Do we, city attorney, if you could read the title, please.
Mayor and council, a resolution ratifying the existence of a local emergency due to early February 2024 storms pursuant to Government Code Section 8630 is ready for adoption.
Who would like to move approval?
So moved.
Great, thank you. Perstick on the first.
Second.
Drew on the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Great. Thank you. We're on to consent. Any polls for this evening? Okay, do we have a motion to approve consent?
Sure, Baldino so moves.
Thank you.
Giroux, second.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Great. Okay, item 11 under public hearings. This is the time and place here to fix for a public hearing regarding adopting a resolution temporarily designating preferential parking zone 3 as a one-year pilot program in an area bound by Washington Street, Mariposa Avenue, Indiana Street, and Holly Avenue. City Clerk, was proper notice in this hearing given in a timely manner?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Has any written communication been received regarding this public hearing?
No, sir.
Thank you. Public hearing is now open. Mr. George, who will make the presentation?
Yes, our city engineer LaFawn from Public Works will give that presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. My name is LaFawn Shu. I'm the city engineer. I try to provide you with the background on why we're recommending Zone 3 and how does that fit into the citywide situation. So the city only has.
Lafon, will you get a little closer to the mic?
Oh,
Thank you.
sorry
Just-
about
It's
that.
a little faint. Thank you.
So the city currently has two preferential parking zones. And the zone number 1 was established in the 80s. And for almost 3-4 decades, we only have one zone. And a couple years ago, actually, this resident did a very passionate petition for zone number 2. And we went through and got council approval for zone number 2 for a couple of streets down there on Hardy, California, and Kansas. And one of the concerns that we have is, how are we just pushing the problem from one area to another? How does it, how does the citywide parking situation look for the residential area? So, to answer those questions, and I borrowing this map from our planning, co-workers, and they did a great job on this one, and so that's why I have to reuse it. So they did a very good survey and sent out, I think, over 1,300, we see 1,300 response. And for the most part, the message from the residents are pretty clear. Do not provide solution to a non-existing problem. That's really the main message for the majority of the residents, except for a couple of areas. And really, that's the one up north, and that is a lot of apartments due to their densities. And then there's the one down south that has a lot to do with the business interference and interaction. And then there's the third, what we call the Anshong, that's come under different spirits of influence. So for the, to establish preferential parking zones, really what we consider a last option. If there's a better way to do this, we will rather do that instead. So the best way to do it is simply increase the total amount of parking that's available to everyone. And, that sounds great, but, most of the time that comes up with an astronomical cost. So one of the things we actually, is actually on this evening's report is the Smoky Hollow pilot project. So for that, for a small price, and maybe some convenience, what we got is a proof of concept. It seems to be working very well. So for for the 5 block that we did, I was anticipated a lot of resistance. I was, people must hate one direction, a street. I was bracing myself for a lot of hate mail and phone calls that didn't come. So, and when I actually talked to the resident, the business in those streets, a lot of the participated hesitancy and resistance really melt away in the face of almost 40% increase in parking capacity. So if I drive around there a lot and try to really get a feel for it. So for the most part, there's a material difference after you implement the pilot project. In the surrounding street, a lot of times you can't find a parking in those areas. But when you drive around those 5 block, a lot of times the parking is available. So for the business, they definitely notice there is a marked improvement and it's visible. So we're still doing some survey to get a soft evaluation of how successful the project actually is, and we'll get back to council in a follow-up report in the future. But from what I see, my eyes tells me, and based on my conversation with some of the business, the concept of the Smoky Hollow pilot project works. If we spread it to the rest of the Smoky Hollow area in the future, in phases, that could really solve a lot of problems on the south area. That it's possible, and at least it's very promising at this point. So And then there's other way that we are looking at to try to provide solution to the parking issue. One of the way we're looking at it, maybe if it works, I'll present to council in the future, is we're looking at the increased availability on the Grand Avenue to see whether that's possible. Because currently, there's a restriction on Grand, there's no parking 6 to 8 a.m., and there's no parking 4 to 6 p.m. So the idea is, that is the perceived rush hour. So we are looking at data to see whether, is that just what we perceive as the actual rush hour, or actually the traffic is significant. So we're looking at a possibility to see whether, instead of a 6 to 8 in the morning, it will be 7 to 8 in the morning. And then instead of 4 to 6 in the afternoon, it would be 5 to 6 in the afternoon. So we try to, really be careful with this. And we want to see whether 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the afternoon will actually help, how much that will help the situation. And if, we think it's worth recommending, we'll bring it up to council. So that giving said, we're looking at all possibilities before we even come to the recommendation of a preferential zone. So, and we're also looking at the controllable element. For example, in this area, in the petition area that we receive, a lot of complaint is there are cars that are probably not supposed to be there to begin with. For example, third-party rental car company. And also there are illegal activity going on with some of the people that parks there. So our police step up the patrol, and also our co-enforcement did a great job in terms of working with to trace out the third-party car rental companies in the past few months. And that situation, those complaints is actually, has go away for the last few months. And so after we control the controllable, we are looking at, what is the actual situation on those streets. So what you see here is it's really a virtual representation of a lot of table in the report. So the red representing for over 60% of the time, the area is overparked. What we mean by overpark is 80% of the space occupied. And for the brown area, which I really want to use yellow, but yellow doesn't come off too well. So it's 40 to 60% of the time. The parkings in space are over 85% occupied. And then for the green area, it's under 40% of the time we have an overpark situation. So it's a pretty good virtual representation of what the parking situation is in the area. So if you can see, there's a really diverse parking situation going on for the petition area. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's generally, the situation is the worst on the east side, and really we don't really have a parking problem on the west side. And the middle it's kind of sometimes you have a problem half of the time, basically. So the other thing we want to look at is how many of those cars are actual residents. And then with police help, we did a second survey. And this map is condensed all the, across 3 days. The police go to at 5 o'clock, 1 p.m., and then 6 p.m. And try to really look up on the street, how many of those cars are actual residents. And, not surprising, is the pattern follow pretty much the same pattern. It's ease. It's majority of the cars are from outside the city. They're not registered in City El Segundo. On average, for example, Indiana's 82%, I think. I can't really see the number. Sorry, I probably need a new set of glasses, but
Did you say that this percentages are calculated for daytime?
yeah,
Doesn't that make sense, though?
Yes, that it's average 5 o'clock in the morning, one survey, and then 1 p.m., and then 6 p.m.
5 o'clock in the morning?
Yes, this is average out, and it's all
that's a
the actual
different-
data is in the report. This is really just try to give a quick representation.
Okay, I'm having a little trouble following you, so I just want to make sure
Right.
I understand, right?
Mhm.
So you're saying that these digits right here, these numbers, these percentages are based on what? The
Average of
Okay,
3
I-
days,
at the
3
same
different
time?
times.
At the
So
same time?
just, no, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and
Okay,
6 p.m.
I think that's where we might be having a little issue with the data.
Right,
All right, if you told me at 5 o'clock in the morning, 82% of the vehicles were from out of the city, we got a problem. And that's an enforcement problem, okay? If you're telling me that 82% are there at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I get that. If you're telling me it's 82% at 7 o'clock at night, okay, now we got a problem. So you know what I'm saying? It's like, I understand what you're saying, that's a difficult graphic
Right,
for me
I
to get.
understand.
It
So-
doesn't tell me what I need to know.
exactly, that's why I have 2 graphs, 2
All right,
slides.
let's get to that one then.
This one is just average, gives you a general feel of what things going. Then the other one is a typical peak hours. So this is really representing anything from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. We more or less look at the same situation here. Yeah, the data is very consistent. It's not a one-time event. So, for example, Indiana, here it's 85% of the time. It's full all the time. And it's compared to the average, even though the previous graph, it got pulled down by the 5 o'clock number. That one was still 82. So, it's basically for Indiana, it's occupied by outside vehicles all the time. And then if you go to the
Yeah, that makes sense. Isn't that adjacent to the hotels?
yes,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yes,
Push
right,
over
right,
Go on
and then so this graph it's you have to put in the context of there is a parking problem to begin with. If the number here by itself only tell half of the story, right? Only if you have a parking issue, then the percentage of outside vehicle is significant. So, and I go over some of the number, and sometimes it could be quite extreme. For example, one of the number I look at is on a Friday, 6 o'clock. It's 2 vehicle on Indiana and 55 from outside the city. So I have to call police and make sure that, can you check the original data to make sure that's not a typo? And, come up, yeah, that is the data. And that's pretty consistent in terms of, it's not a one-time event. It's not because somebody throwing, a big event at a hotel. It's just, if you look at the data over 3 days, it's very consistent. There's a pattern in terms of how this data turns out. Yes, so the police are all weekday. The previous one, the parking capacity, we have the weekend data. The weekend data it's also show there are some improvement over the weekend. However, the improvement is not obvious. Since we currently have enforcement capacity during the weekend, so I focus on the weekday.
Okay.
So, but because if you look at it,
I think you got it.
yeah, so 6 o'clock, most of the office at the south side, they're out of work. So, but still we are under other different factors here. So that's why when we look at the situation, we think, the way the previous two parking zone works is not, we are not excluding they have a 24-hour preferential parking zone. The way the previous two works is we establish 10 to 11 a.m. and then 2 to 3 p.m. For those two periods, we, only residents can park there, with the permit. And, even though we don't have other restriction, that works because they help turn the cars over and disencourage some of the cars maybe, try to park elsewhere or just go to the right place. Or if they don't belong in the city, they just go completely out of the picture. So for those, previous two zones, those hours work for, once we implement it, it works like a charm. But for this one, we really have a bigger problem in the evening because those two areas are under a lot of influence for business that it's busy during the daytime. Once it gets to the off-work hour, the problem goes away by itself. So for this one, we are recommending adjusting the restriction hour. Instead of normal 2 to 3, we're recommending 3 to 4. So that way, we still have police here to be able to enforce during the regular work hour. And that should help the late evening situation. So that's why we recommended the preferential parking zone 3 only for the street that currently fits the criteria that really have a problem. And then we'll have the rest of position area as a monitoring zone. So we'll continue to gather data for the next 12 months. And if we need to make any kind of adjustment, we'll come back to council and say either, including certain street into the preferential zone or reduce or we tweak the hour a little bit. So, we try to come up with the best recommendation. However, we know that by the fact of establishing a preferential zone, they're probably going to change the dynamic of this area a little bit. That's why we want to propose this 1-year pilot. Meanwhile, we use the opportunity to continue to gather data, and then we'll make adjustment accordingly. So that
Lafon, can you just clarify one more time what your recommendation is? So part of the area will be 3 to, can you just restate that one more time? What are you recommending then?
So the recommendation is for the, area in red, which is only including Indiana from Mariposa to Harley.
We got it. Just sum it up.
Right. So it's just recommended those to be established as a preferential parking zone 3. And then we'll come back in a year.
And you're recommending only from 3 to 4 p.m. And my question would be, are we have a concern that that's not addressing first shift workers? If we think this is a worker intrusion issue, we have first shift workers who are 6 to 2, they will not have to turn their cars over.
Right. So it's not a perfect solution, but our experience shows that that's how it works. We just tweak the hour a little bit, and I think we'll. It has a chance to
I
work
just want
out.
to make sure if we have further dialogue up here that we're asking for clarification, we're not getting into a council discussion yet. Okay? So are there any other clarifying questions for Stefan or Elias? Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, just to
Yes.
reiterate, the recommendation is for the areas that are shown in red, that from 1 to 2 and 3 to 4. 1 to 2, I'm sorry, 10 to 11?
10 to 11
a.m. and 3 to 4 p.m.
3 to 4 p.m.
Oh, we are recommending the 2 spots. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and then code enforcement would go around and cite
Yes.
tickets and
And,
then
yeah.
what about blue?
The blue is gonna be under advisement. We're gonna keep an eye on the blue area to see how these areas
Okay.
are doing with time, and within a year, we come back to the city council with our
And
findings.
then how does this compare to the petition that was circulated?
The petition that was circulated was on the, if you go to the first, the two slides before. So the petition requested all the areas that you see in red. So in effect, what recommendation is based on our study and based on input from our police department, we would like to implement about maybe 1/3 to 1/2 of the streets that the petition is asking for at this time, and then look at the rest of them and see how things are evolving within 1 year. And we'll come back to the city council and we report back if we need to make any adjustments.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Levon.
Thank you.
Okay, public hearing is now open for public input.
No, thank you.
Let's see, is there anyone that would like to, yeah, we have some cards, right?
We have, Tamiko Bugden.
Good evening. My name is Tamiko Bugden, and first of all, I would like to thank you for considering our petition and allowing us to speak tonight. This is a little surprise to me because I had requested for neighborhood parking only, the highest restriction, no windows for any visitors to park on our residential side of and so this wasn't discussed, but I'm completely not happy with what is being presented here. I mean, I am a resident living in the affected area. Been living there for 5 years. I mean, we are constantly competing for curb space, constantly. Due to being inundated by, I can't even talk. Airport parking, unhoused individuals living in their cars. I can't let my daughter walk home from school. Hotel business parking. Not all of us have a 9 to 5. A lot of us work from home. I have my mom and dad coming from Burbank. They're always circling the block. It's just lots of littering, excessive noise from the hotel guests, illegal substances right under my window. I just want the visitors to just stay in the lots. There's no respect that I see. I'm constantly calling Fairfield, asking for them to clean up after their guests, and I'm videoing and sending emails. It's bigger than a police issue. I feel like their hands are always tied, and I feel like the signs will give them leverage to say, you know what, the residents, they want their neighborhood. They want, we're really asking you to keep the integrity of our neighborhood strong, and we want to feel supported and protected. It really is an issue. I mean, we can do a whole year, maybe pilot testing for just neighborhood parking, and see how that goes. I really ask for that, and I thank you for your time. Sorry, I'm so nervous. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have another one, right?
We have, actually, we have 4 altogether.
Okay, great.
Phelan Archuleta.
Hi, my name's Phelan Archuleta. I'm a resident. I've been a resident of El Segundo for about 3 years now. I love living here. I love how safe it is. I love the community. But I feel that the parking on our street, I'm on Indiana Street, directly adjacent from 2 hotels. It's just been so frustrating with this parking situation. My neighbor did a great job summing up all the issues that we have. Yeah, it's just been very, very frustrating. We have hotel guests parking there. We have the workers of the hotel parking there, unhoused individuals in their vehicles parking there. And we're fighting for our parking spots. It's very frustrating. The trash has become an issue. She mentioned there's tons of trash just consistently out there. No matter how much we clean up after it, it just keeps piling up. So yeah, I would really like to see a different solution. I would like also the strictest kind of parking that we could have. I think what I was told was there was a proposition for 3 like permanent resident passes and 2, I believe, guest passes. A lot of us have multiple vehicles in our homes, so that would really help. And I really hope that you consider doing stronger parking enforcement on our street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yann Pettit?
Bonjour, my name is Yann Petit. I also live in El Segundo, and I'd like to talk about what you talked about, parking issue. So I was also surprised about the time frame that you want to give us, from 10 to 11 and 3 to 4. I drive my kids to school, all 3 schools, and I leave a little, about 7:55 to drop my kid at the middle school, and when I come back, there's no more room. It's taken. And you're like, you got to be kidding me, right? And so you try to find a parking spot. So the kid in the high school starts a little later. Same story. When you come back, there's no more room, and that's just in the morning, and then same story in the afternoon. So that's one problem that we have. It's extremely difficult to find parking. Oftentimes we have to park 1-2 blocks sometimes away from where we are and where we live. And if you want to help me carry my, food, groceries, bags, and it'd be helpful. But anyway, that's one issue. Another issue is someone mentioned that my neighbor, the first neighbor that talked, there are some people living in their vans. And one day I happened to be on the street, and there was a police officer there, and I asked him about it. I said, well, this person lives here. They move whenever there's street cleaning going on. And I'm like, what can we do about it? And he told me, well, if they don't break the rules that are on the panels, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And there's a number of vans of people, and I assume, I don't know where they go shower, where they go to the bathroom, but can't be in their van most likely. So that's one of the other issues. And same thing, I would be really grateful if we could just find parking, I don't know, like, I don't want to say in a normal place, but it's, you try to park close to home. I'm not asking for, a parking spot right across from where I live, but I mean, close. And the recommendations I heard from the engineer, I'm not sure are going to solve the issues that we are facing as residents here. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Last one I have is Jennifer Rowell. Sorry if I messed that up.
Hi, thank you so much. I would echo everything everyone said. In fact, on my way here tonight, I took a picture of one of those vans that they're speaking of someone who's a transient living across the street. I go jogging typically in the mornings, everybody knows me here, around 5 a.m. And I can tell you, I often see there's about 2 or 3 usuals that are the transients. My husband probably doesn't like that I jog at that kind of morning, but I work early hours, so I have no choice. I think I would echo everything everyone says in terms of the hotel parking. Most of the time they show up around 5:30 in the morning and then leave around 3:30. I know because I'm out there and I watch them show up and get out of their cars and go to the parking spot. They'll take up 1 or 2 spaces, so they'll take up more than their share even sometimes. When they were doing their rioting or whatever it was they were doing, protesting, there were tons of them. It was even harder to find parking. And this is all times of the day, not just during working hours. Then I would say also we have airport people will come, and I think it's probably because it's cheaper to take a parking ticket than it is to park in LAX on a $35 pop per day is a little more expensive than $35 for a week. So we'll see them get out with their luggage, the Uber drives up and off they go. You see the airport plane people, the attendants and pilots getting out of their car with their luggage, their pilot gear on, and then they go over to the hotel because I think they can take the tram pretty easily. So we're actually on the park side of things, not on the Indiana, so we're on Illinois Street. And it is hard to find parking with your groceries, and no one here knows this, but I happen to have a medical condition, so it's a little harder to lug your groceries in all by yourself, especially 2 blocks away. Now I've got a little trick that I do, and I park my son's car there, so I've figured it out, but why should I have to do that as a resident? And then I would echo all the trash and things everywhere, and I know these guys are doing the best they can, but it's gotten kind of out of hand. So I don't know if the 10 to 11 and the 3 to 4 would solve it. Maybe, because you have people having to move, but I think the transient thing, you'll still have people overnight, which might be a problem. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I suppose so. If you can make it quick, please.
I'm sorry.
Hey, if there's anyone else who would like to speak, just get a card to the Madam Clerk, please. Thank you.
For a fact, I know that one of those transient people actually work at the Auto Fix It, and so they they repair cars and stuff, and he works there, and so yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
I believe there's 2 gentlemen that are looking to fill out a card. Just bring them up.
Yeah,
Sure.
it just helps us queuing, but yeah, go ahead, please. No, it's quite all right. It's quite all right. Please.
So, my name is Gordon Landis. I live on Indiana Street, which I think we have clearly identified as a problem street. I've lived in El Segundo since 1999. I've lived on Whiting Street. I've lived on Loma Vista, and I've lived on Arena. I basically lived on the west side, south side, north side, and now, unfortunately, live on the east side. So yes, I chose to live behind a hotel. I did not know the problems that come with that, right? So to me, this is a problem, and my neighbors have rallied us to come here and ask for help. On a side note, I have a disabled son. So I experience the same problems that everybody else does with parking. It's terrible there, worst place in El Segundo. Not anecdotal, but factual, right? I've lived all over El Segundo. And so I'm asking for your help. And I don't know this time frame thing or not, but my wife is a stay-at-home mother. So she's there during the daytime. So we need protection of parking, to me, 24 hours a day. So I don't know what we can do, but I'm bringing it to you to try to help us in that area. And yes, on a side note, I don't know to get the proper procedural things, but to put this place on notice, and I think we got law enforcement in the back, right? That is a potential crime area right there with the unhoused people and the stuff that goes on there. And I'm not exactly concerned for myself. I've worked in the security profession for quite some time. I also served in the military. I was in Desert Storm. So I feel I can defend myself if something was to happen. But I'm worried about my wife. I'm worried about people that are not 6'3" at 225 pounds that don't have proper training. So just to put everybody on notice, right, you probably do have increased patrols in that area, but there should be increased patrols in that area because crime occurs in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, whoever else wanted to speak, just come on up. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I'm Tamiko's husband. She kind of started this journey. And I just wanted to kind of point out, I don't know if it was ever really mentioned, on Indiana, on the opposite side of the hotel, the current street signs show 2-hour parking, all times of the day, every day, which isn't enforced, which is thankful for us, because we can't even park in front of our own apartment without getting a ticket. So it's not enforced there. But on the other side, there's no signs whatsoever. Hotel parking, airport staff park and leave for days. So a pilot will come and park, and the car will sit there for 4 days until they come back and move. So yeah, the hour thing is very kind of strange and what that might help. But as I said, currently, if the rules were followed, we would be ticketed daily parking in front of our own building, as hotel staff or airport staff or homeless can park on the opposite side of the street for days. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah,
Come on up, Zeus.
My name is Paul Morrison. I live at 421 Indiana Street, and I've been there since '96. And you know, I constantly watch people park on Indiana and get their briefcase out, and then go to their particular business. They walk down the street to Biz House, or they walk across to the big towers over there, because it's cheaper to park there and walk than to pay for that parking slip that they need. The solution just seems bizarre to me. It seems more problematic as a solution. I can only imagine people that are used to parking there that all of a sudden have this one little window where they're not supposed to park and getting a ticket, and just, you know, it just does not seem like a solution. If you wanted a solution, I would think, I mean, I'm thinking of the people that park there that don't live there. It would seem a steep learning curve for them to realize that, oh, I can't park at this time, but I can park here. And then I can't park at this time, but then I can park here. It would seem a solution would be to have limited parking around those two red areas, you know, so that the signs would be there and they would be clear and they would be understandable. It just seems a confusing solution to a problem that does exist. And I live right in front of the storm drain, drains down from Mariposa, from Holly, and the engineering on that was terrific. And we've had no problems, and I just wanted to thank the city for providing service like that. It's so, it makes the town livable. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi. My name is Tracy Williams. I'm also a resident of El Segundo. I live off of Illinois Street, across from the park. And in the immediate area, there's businesses like Collision Research, Biz House, the other gentleman mentioned, Advanced Express Studio Printing, Kirk Flooring, Sunset Flooring, Step and Locked, and then especially a big business, Fix Auto, Jim and Jack's Collision Center. They have their own parking lot, and they occupy both sides of the street from their business. And their workers also park in the residential area. So many times, like everyone else, or many people say, we're competing for spots. I'm a resident, I work for the airlines, and I do see other airline employees talking about parking there. And there's no parking spot for me because I go to the airport at odd hours and regular hours. So when I come back, there's no parking available for me. And as a resident, I feel like I should have the first choice versus the big businesses that occupy so much space already with their parking spot, and they overflow into the residential area. So I just wanted to echo everyone else and add a little more to what I've seen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm
Paul Pastorelli. I live on Pine Avenue, Illinois. I'm directly across from Freedom Park. I feel it's a heavy crime area. I see a lot of drug activity, homeless, littering. Our parking there's no parking, 24/7, not just specific hours. I can never find parking at all during the day, at night. We have a competition between LAX folks and the hotel folks fighting for our spots all the time. So I don't think there should be any sort of restrictions that are 1 to 3, 7 to 2, or whatever. It should be at all times. We need permanent parking, period. We need more police in that area as well. On Mariposa, right before Illinois, on the north side of Mariposa, folks are just blowing past the stop signs all the time. We had police there on Sunday. I think they're just giving warnings, but pretty much you can count on every 5 or 3 minutes somebody's blowing past the stop sign. One time I saw a child get hit on his bicycle, and it was a hit and run. The guy was fleeing. He got stopped at the light right before Sepulveda. I ran to his car. I started banging on his window. Did I miss something? And he apologized. And I mean, this is like all the time, it's a dangerous area. I've called the police many times on people, disgruntled, homeless folks, angry. I don't know if they're heavily medicated, not medicated. I don't know what the situation is, the scenario, but violent, very violent. And again, we're talking Freedom Park. This is a park where children play. So again, I'm on Pine Avenue, which theoretically is on Illinois. I'm actually physically on Illinois, but my address is on Pine, or 1771 Pine Avenue. So my recommendation is definitely permit parking in the red zone area. Indiana, Illinois, Mariposa, anywhere between or by the hotels. So basically, people do park at LAX. Folks park there for about not just a week, sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks. They'll take the tickets because it's a lot less expensive than paying for airport parking. So they are competing with the hotel folks, just eating up our spaces. So that is the solution, permit parking, period. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Karen Prohl, and I live at 400 Illinois Street. That's catty corner from Jim and Jack's. I'm a bit short. And it has become a regular daily pickup place for people who are going on vacation somewhere. People with luggage being picked up by taxi cabs or Ubers. All kinds of people hanging out along my wall. It's gotten very uncomfortable. And I have spoken to people who park across the street there because of my front yard. They like it. So they park there because they don't want to pay for parking at work. And especially that loading and unloading of passengers going somewhere, it's spooky. And I agree with everybody. I wish something would be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we've hit our limit. Unless anyone has anything different to share, there have been very consistent comments. We appreciate those. Anyone else? Okay. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Pimentel, so moved.
Thank you. Have a second?
Baldino seconds.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. All right, time for council discussion.
Can I ask where the 2-hour parking zone is that we heard talk about? Is that on Indiana? Does that go all the way around Illinois? Does anyone know? We got to talk to staff, but thank you. Thank you for participating.
So So the first one is up there on California, and
No, just the 2-hour parking that
Next to
abuts
the
this
hotel.
red area, not in the entire city, just.
right, the first one, parking zone number 1 is.
No,
just by
next to the
proposed perimeter
hotel.
parking, by the hotel.
They said there's a sign for 2-hour parking that's not being enforced. Where are those signs at next to the hotel?
So, It's, they're talking about the east side of Indiana. So it's the business side, right?
So the west side of Indiana, from Holly to Mariposa, is supposed
It's
to be
a
2
what?
hours. Correct? Okay,
That-
thank you.
Yeah,
And as I understand the proposal, is that that entire block, if you
Mhm.
have a permit,
Mhm.
you can park there all the time and never move your car.
right.
Okay, if you don't have a permit, meaning you're an employee or you're going to the airport, you have to move your car twice that day or else you'll get a ticket every day. Correct? And those
Right.
hours, Elias,
Mhm,
are
yeah.
in the morning at 10,
That's the proposal. Yep.
10 to 11, and then 3 to 4. Okay. But if I am a resident there and I have a permit from the city, I put that in my car, I don't have to move my car.
That is correct.
Would that also apply to the 2-hour parking zone?
We'll remove the
We will
2 hour
remove
zone. That wouldn't apply anymore for that side of the street.
So then, if I'm not a resident, I can park for longer than 2 hours as long as I move my car between the early morning
Right.
and the late
Correct.
afternoon. So
Correct.
if I'm an employee across the street,
Mhm.
now it's no longer 2-hour parking. I can just park, move the car once, go to work, come back and move the car again.
Mhm.
That's what it
Depends on
sounds
your
like.
shift because it's.
It depends on your shift,
right,
but
right,
assuming you work a normal hour, that's,
Right,
you're probably gonna have to move your car once during the workday
Mhm.
to avoid.
correct.
Okay, have we thought about implementing a 2-hour zone on top of the parking permit? So that the residences
Right.
don't have to move because you have a
Mhm.
permit. If you don't have a permit, not only can you not park there for these specific windows, but if you are parking there, you're only parking there 2 hours.
I mean, like they do in the city of LA.
Yeah, basically, you're a visitor in our city. You can park here and go visit your friend in the hotel. You gotta come back in 2 hours or we're gonna give you a ticket, right? If you're an employee, you can't work there all day because you gotta move your car every 2 hours. Now, again, it's gonna come down to enforcement, right? But I'm trying to think of, we want our residents to have a neighborhood where they can park. And we wanna discourage those who work at office buildings from saving a couple of bucks and kind of gaming the system. So I think instead of taking away the 2-hour, that should be put in, not just on that one street, but that entire, if you go to your proposal, please, that shows the red and
Yes.
the blue.
Can you go to the?
So it's kind of belt and suspenders, right? You get a permit in the red zones, and maybe not in that residential, but Illinois, that trouble area there. If that's all 2-hour, then that should stop people from dropping off their cars over a long period. And how would it work? Do I get a ticket every day?
Well,
The problem is it's hard to enforce. I mean,
Right,
I understand where they're going with the time of day. Police can go at that time of day
Yes.
and clearly see. Can I ask one quick question, Ryan, about, I lived in California. We were the first parking, I think we were the first parking permit area, maybe the second.
No, second.
Al Kiahi circulated the petition, we all signed it. That is permit parking 24/7, correct?
No.
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 Did they change? It
10,
used to be.
10 to 11.
10 to 11.
and,
2 to
and
3.
2 to
And
3.
it changed because originally you had to have a permit on your car at all times. You could get a guest permit.
Mm-hmm.
And the only people that could park there were residents, regardless, unless they had a guest pass. That was I lived there. That was the original thing.
That I think that's the impression, but the actual rules is the actual enforced hour is 10 to 11. That's what the sign says, 10 to 11 and 2 to 3. And that works so well. It gives people the impression that, you know, hey, this is 24 hour. I think
And
that's
it's easy
Can I-
for police to enforce, I guess.
Right.
that
But
part.
can
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
ask that question? Because we were saying to give these limited hours to help the police enforce it. But truly, that's not true because that means the police would have to overstaff during those times to actually go around where all those areas that we have the specific, because it's the same hours all around the city. So that means he'd have to ramp up his staffing for those 4-hour time frame to go around and ticket everybody. So why don't you give, if you just blanket and say 24 hours permit parking, gives the police the ability to go and ticket it whenever they want to and gives them more flexibility and leverage out the time frame of when they can go and ticket people. Because right now, if you implement a 2-hour window all across the city, which you're suggesting, he's not changing his staffing for the police department to accommodate that. So that doesn't make sense. It's not logical, and I don't understand why you're saying it would actually help the police. To me, it would hinder them because Now they have to go around at that specific time to ticket people, and they're not ramping up their police staff during those times.
I think this is the moment we need to hear directly from the police.
And while Jaime's coming up here, Councilmember Baldino, I'm sorry, did you want to, I cut you off. I changed directions on you.
No, I'm just, I understand the idea of having the window of time because the police can go at that time, check for permits, you're getting a ticket or you're not.
But they could go, if it's 24 hours, they can go anytime, and then he doesn't have to overstaff.
I'm just talking about the enforcement. The reason
know,
they're
but-
telling me that 2 hours doesn't work is because we don't have anyone to go out there every 2 hours
Yeah,
and
but
check.
if everywhere in the city, wherever we're putting these permits at the same 2-hour window, he's not ramping up his staff during those times to make sure he has enforcement, code enforcement. Like, when you're gonna hire a code enforcement, you're gonna hire him for a period of time, right? It's just not logical for me.
One ticket buys a lot of chalk. And chalk and tires is pretty easy. I feel like we're overthinking this a little bit, but Chief, I defer to you.
So, good evening, Mayor, members of council. I prepared for what I thought might be some of the questions. So we have 3 zones for special parking, and I do remember having a zone many, many years ago where it was exclusively parking by permit. And so I don't know if we still have that, but I do remember that. So Zone 1 was the one that we originally set up a while back. We issued no citations in Zone 1. So the timed parking seems to have worked in that area, and maybe the dynamics are a little bit different between Zone 1, which is residential, and this proposed
And I would say
Zone
those are
3.
airport workers, so it's much harder for them to come across Imperial to move their car twice a day. That's probably a bigger disincentive in Zone 1 than it
Yes.
would be from somebody just sprinting out from Biz House.
Yes.
If it was Biz House, I'm not throwing stones at Biz House.
Zone 2, which is fairly recent, we issued 27 sites during the last year. And almost exclusively, they were all in response to a call from a resident. And so that seems to have worked as far as us getting complaints. Zone 3, the proposal from Director Elias's department was to change the evening hours, not consistent with Zone 1 and Zone 2, but make it different later on in the evening. I believe 3 to 4, as opposed to 2 to 3. If you're asking for my recommendation, we might be better, based on what we're hearing here, just an overall permit program to where it's consistent the entire time, kind of like what we had on California, where it's exclusively for the residents.
So we had, if I counted correctly, 8 people that came up that live in that area. It wasn't just talking about parking, it was talking about a bigger problem. And the bigger problem is transiency, people living in their cars, potential drug use. We got kids that live in that area. It's a bigger problem, and I think the only way to solve that problem is 24-hour. If you want to do a pilot program, I would rather do 24-hour no tolerance policy for that 1 year than to do it an hour here, hour there. And it should be a heck of a lot easier for you to be able to code enforce that. Is that,
Yeah,
is that
absolutely.
accurate?
Yes, I mean, if just based on what I'm hearing today at this meeting, I realize there's a lot of complaints within the whole parking issue, but just standing back there, I already talked to some of the captains about responding to some of the complaints from the residents. We will have added police presence out there. As far as people living in their vehicle, that's a challenge throughout the region, and I'm working with Director Allen on that, and part of the problem with that is we have to observe them actually getting in and out of the vehicle and have to confirm that they're living in the vehicle overnight.
Right, but what I'm saying is whether they're living in the vehicle or not, if you cannot park there, if you don't have a permit, then it solves that particular problem for that area. And I understand, I mean, obviously with that area, with the hotels, with the proximity to PCH, all that, it's, look, we don't have anybody here from any of those other streets. So this is to me, it sounds like what I got from all this was a much bigger issue than just I don't have a parking space. Now, the only thing I would say as we get a little deeper on this, on the amount of actual permits you give to each individual house. One of the things I will say is that I have to assume that when you rent an apartment, you're there is some allocated parking space. Has to be. Or else, so giving out 5 per household, that's a no for me. Because if you say you have 1 or 2 allocated, then you get 3 or 4 on the street. I mean, it becomes a problem. I would say that we'll have to figure out the best way to do that. Whether it's, I have this many licensed drivers in the house, whatever it is, but let's be reasonable about what we're doing here. Just because individuals, and again, this is throughout the city, decide to build out their garage, live in it, make it a different space, and not use it for cars, doesn't mean you have a space on the street. But I agree with if we're gonna do this pilot program, I would do it it's 24 hours, residents only, and you have to have a permit to do it. It's gonna have to be registered through the city. People have to give up their information, but that's what it is. But that's how I feel about this, based on what I've heard.
Yes, I hear that loud and clear. I don't know how this, I believe this is the feedback that was received from the survey, and maybe that's something that your department can answer, Elias, but I think that's how this was structured, based on information that was received from the survey.
The other thing we have to be cognizant of, there is a planned build near that area with apartment complex. So, you know, we really should establish some type of protocol before that build happens, so that we're not up here again, you know, a year from now, and it's, you know, people complaining again. So like, if we establish it now, before that build, at least then we can already have things set in stone, because otherwise we're just gonna have a problem, continuous problem.
Yes.
I think there's no doubt that we'll be playing whack-a-mole with this, right? That this goes in, and those people who are living in their vans are just gonna live in front of somebody else's house, you know. So there's gonna be an element of that, but there's sort of 3 things here, right? One is the precedent and the parking piece, because we are gonna be adding a lot of people to that area, and in theory, those developments are overparked, right? They're overparked at a ratio of whatever what it was, 1.75 per unit or something, 454 spots. In theory, it won't hit at once, but it's the visitors that are going to spill out into the neighborhood. So it's important we sort of lay the ground rules down for what it's going to look like. There's a code enforcement issue, so apart from meter maids and chalking tires, there's a code enforcement piece where if we have businesses that are underparked, or they're bringing more employees than they are parked for, then that is something that, I mean, this, you know, you know, if we've got to go to the automotive place, or if we have to talk to the hotels, that's something that is incumbent on us to call upon them, because their management may not even realize it's happening, right? But we dealt with this with one car rental firm that was parking there, and they realized, oh, wait, I guess by our covenant, we cannot do that. So that's a second one. And the policing piece, I mean, you know, you're gonna be chasing these guys. I mean, there's no doubt. If there's people who they're comfortable sleeping next to a park, obviously because it's a park, but they're just gonna be moving around the city.
Yes.
And that's a sort of regional issue, and we know that's a headache, and that's part of it. So there's 3 pieces. The easiest one that we're here to address is the parking one. I think the situation that the solution you have crafted is exquisite. And I mean that in the sort of the classic military sense, right? It's exquisite like an F-35, but we really just need a bunch of planes. So in this one, like, let's find the simpler solution. I would advocate, you know, it's 2-hour parking that's enforced by chalk, and then have a permit that allows people, the residents, to sleep there. And I defer to Public Works to figure out how those are allocated, or I guess that maybe it's you in community development that figures out how they're allocated. I love it. Nice matrix move right there. Yeah. T-shirt that says, "I'm not with a parking guy." However we allocate those parking permits, whether it's 2 per unit or 3 per single-family home, or whatever the case may be.
So your proposal is 2-hour in that red area?
I would say the permit guys can park there whenever they want. Everybody
Yeah.
else, it's 2 hours.
2 hours.
2 hours, that's it. Chalk the
Yeah.
tire and then.
No, I would
you
agree with
know.
that. But as an aside, Chief, tell us, if a resident sees someone they think is unhoused living in their car, who do they contact about that? Do I go to the report it page on the website? Do I call the police to do a wellness check? What can residents do to let the city know that, you know, we might have an issue with something?
So anytime people see or suspect somebody living in their vehicle, the best thing to do is call the dispatch line. And they will send out an officer, and they'll take some enforcement action, whether they mark the car, whether they knock on the door of the car or contact the person. That's the best way to do it. And also, it gives us the ability to allocate resources to where we're getting more calls. So we know people are calling, if there's an issue, and we can send officers that way.
Yeah, and I've seen on that Mariposa by the park, you had that police camera
Yes.
set up to kind of, I guess there was a problem there with people, and you had the camera there to have more presence. So if more people call about homeless and cars, then you'll put more resources towards that issue in that
Yeah,
neighborhood.
absolutely, yeah. When we get calls, we monitor the volume of calls that we're getting, and we constantly evaluate to where do we send additional officers.
Okay, thank you for that information.
I'd like to make a proposal, to, a motion, I guess, to do a 24-hour permit parking in the area.
Can you just clarify, because we have a count, what you were suggesting was 2 hour. I also struggle with that because
Yeah.
I think the chief's gonna, I think you guys are gonna have well, you tell us. I think what I heard you say is all or nothing. Permit where it's very clear this car belongs here because they have a permit, and that's it? And guests, or, because how do you deal with the 2 hour parking? I'm trying to struggle how you'd allow that and 2 hour parking.
Let's say city of LA, I mean, that's standard. You go to parts of LA, you get a hangar, and if you don't have the hangar, they come by and shock your tire, and 2 hours later,
Yeah, but we
somebody in
just-
the white car.
we
We don't
comes
do that
by.
anywhere right now, really.
We don't even do it downtown. We have 2-hour parking, we don't even enforce that in downtown. So why would we think
But
we're
we
gonna
can,
enforce it?
we can deal with enforcement, and we can track
Maybe
enforcement.
we don't. I mean, it's been years. I mean, that's the issue with downtown. We don't enforce, I live on Main Street. I can tell you, I can't tell the last time someone's gotten a ticket.
That's true, and the merchants say that, employees and others park there, and there's no rotation of
enforce
cars, not enough. What would you, what,
We
Chief?
we don't do the enforcement consistently, and I will acknowledge that. Part of the issue is we don't have dedicated parking enforcement. We have cadets, we have some police service officers that have to staff the front desk. And so part of the challenge is that was outlined in this report, if the direction is to have consistent enforcement, we're gonna have to look at a more robust program, either higher parking enforcement that are dedicated to that duty. It's just difficult to do consistently on the 2-hour parking. So if we do it all the time, it would just be a clear-cut rule all the time.
You probably only have to come through there a couple times, and it scares people probably pretty good. But
I think that's,
funds itself.
we do love pilot programs, right? We figured out that these things, they're a good way to get stuff done a lot quicker. And you can always back off of a zero tolerance policy. It's difficult to ramp it up once you've set less than that. And that's why I'm saying, if we wanted to do the zero, I mean, I think the year is fine, because by the time we get this thing ramped up and by the time it comes back to us, I think a year is good. But the thing that got to me tonight is that you're fixing a bigger problem than people don't have a place to park next to their apartment. That's the part that got to me tonight. So I don't think anybody, law enforcement, we're not denying that there's an issue there with the hotels and that alleyway, the way that thing's sunken down, a lot of places to hide, access everywhere. It's a problem area. That this is going to help that out. And is it going to spread it out a little bit? Yeah, probably. But this is such an easy place to get that done, out of sight, out of mind from everybody, that I think that's why we have a bigger problem there, in my opinion.
One more thought is I remember, I can't remember what year it was, when we outlawed commercial vehicles. And I had to actually move my business out of town for that reason, but that was fine because it solved a bigger problem. That was one of the smartest things we did. We didn't even realize we were helping keep out a lot of transients from El Segundo. But if you look at surrounding LA, they don't have such ordinances. So you have RVs and vans parked everywhere. And so for this neighborhood, similar reason, you either have a permit or you don't. I think if you're in a van, it's really easy to move around every 2 hours. If you are a transient, maybe you don't have a job. And I agree that the permit solution would be a better way to see whether this is working. And if it doesn't work after a year, we go backwards, or we change it altogether. It worked on California. I will say to the residents, it is a bit of a pain. You have guests coming, it takes coordination.
I don't remember at the time how many permits were given to each resident, but I do remember that zone, and I want to say we still have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Carol made a motion. Any further comment?
Can I
Yes,
clarify,
Mr. Hensel.
for purposes of the motions being made, I think there's two issues. One, what areas are going to be covered, because staff is recommending only part of what was in the petition. And so are you, just so there's clarification, so whoever's making the motion, what are you including in the area and what hours?
Well, I think we said 24 hours. So that, there's that, there's
Is
that.
it all the red in 24 for 24
Well,
hours?
are we doing the red, or are we doing those two boxes there?
My
Because-
understanding is the petition covers everything, the red and the blue, but staff is only recommending the red,
Red,
correct?
correct.
So,
I think you start with the red. But you,
I would start with the red, but I would do all of Washington. You can't do half a street of Washington. Right, like Washington.
So Washington from Holly to Mariposa.
Yeah, include the other component of, the other block of Washington.
What about the east-west streets? I forget what they are. Mariposa
Mary Holly.
and Holly. Yeah, is it Holly?
Holly, Mariposa, and then Pine down the middle.
Yeah.
Holly is right in front of those businesses. You gonna make that residential? That strip right there in Holly, that's where you got BizWork and the printer and that.
I think we don't need it. If the other stuff is 24-hour, you won't need it. And then Mariposa, there are some houses there. But there's a residential. So maybe you just go all of Washington and this the piece of Mariposa.
I'm just saying, if you start with just the side east, of the park, okay? And then we start seeing after a few months that the problem has migrated, then you address it. But right now, I think we're just guessing. We know for a fact, based on tonight, that those two rectangles there are a problem. So why don't we address the immediate, and then we can always bring this thing back. We find out that there's a problem, and then, hey, we already have the program set up. We're just gonna
We can do that.
move it over.
We can do that.
Carol, would you like to amend your
Yes,
motion?
so I'll amend the motion for 24-hour public permit parking for the two boxes in red, so Illinois, Indiana, Mariposa, Holly, and Pine.
For a pilot program, right?
Pilot program for a year.
1 year.
As shown, recommended by staff. Is that correct? All,
No, not the Washington.
okay, so we're taking out the Washington.
Just the two red.
Okay.
Okay, second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
I
Is
know
that
they're happy at the
5-0?
back of the room.
Okay, 5-0.
I haven't voted. I
Oh,
would-
I'm sorry, Councilman.
That's okay. No, I would just vote no. I think the 2 hour with the permit would actually work a little better, but that's
Well,
fine.
can I ask those boxes though, that's the west side of
Oh, it's gotta be both sides.
Indiana and the east side of Illinois,
Right,
correct?
only the residential side.
Oh, the
So we are-
residential
we're
side.
excluding the
Yeah.
commercial side.
So the commercial side,
Right, yes, commercial side is
the
whatever it
commercial side is
but
2 hour and the park side's 2 hour.
They're
It's
saying it's
not,
not
but
2
you
hours.
could-
Do we want to put 2 hours on that commercial side? So I think would be a second motion to add 2 hour parking along that commercial side, the east side of Indiana.
And the park side of Illinois is already 2 hours, correct?
No,
No, it's street sweeping like everything else, I think.
yeah, so do on Illinois, on the west side of Illinois and the east side of Indiana, to do 2 hour parking.
Who are we accommodating there? I mean, there's the two hotels, biz houses, all the way up on Mariposa. Who are we accommodating with the street parking? By,
Well, on the east side or the west side of the east side of Indiana would be hotel residents or guests, transit. But the park side would be people going to the park, right?
but if we have this issue where we heard a lot of comments about, it's not just about the parking, it's about safety and transients, why would we encourage that on the east side of Indiana with 2 hour parking? Why not just make it permit parking, that whole street?
Yeah, okay.
I agree. I think you just have to, for this pilot program, zero out that area and see what it does for us. Does it solve the problem, or does it not, or does it make a new one? But I think if we get too tricky, we get 2 hours on one side, 0 on the other, we go into the same problem of enforcement again. So,
permit parking on all of it, even on the east side of,
east side of Indiana?
and the west side of.
So we had 4 votes in favor of the motion.
Got a
Hold on a
question
second.
I need
Does
to
anyone
ask.
want to change their vote knowing that we're the way they understand it now, which is it's all of Indiana. No? Okay. Mr. Sassoon.
Just, if you don't mind, just to irritate on east side of Indiana, it's commercial. Normally, the parking permit program is applicable to residential, so I don't know whether we could extend this onto the commercial side. It's a question that I'm asking.
But
you know,
there's
maybe-
no commercial facing that street.
But
All the entrances.
The zoning
No, I
is
know,
not-
but the hotels have parking theoretically.
It's
The
fine, I just want to
businesses-
make sure that that's doable. I'm not opposing that, I just want to make sure we can do it legally.
I mean, we already passed the first one, right? We already passed the residential side. Now we're just talking about the commercial side and the park side.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, but we can
We can add
keep-
another
We
component.
can extend things. Like, I would put that as 2 hours. I put it 2 hours at the park and 2 hours on the commercial side.
Yeah, because right now there's nothing. So do we want to just go 2 hours on the commercial side and 2 hours on the park side? Or do you want,
I would like to move 2-hour parking on the east side of Indiana between Holly and Mariposa, and on the park side of Illinois between Mariposa and Holly.
I second that motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
No. 4-1.
Wait.
Two different motions. Now the city attorney's up.
Here's what we have so
Form a
far.
National Assembly.
We've already approved residential permit parking along Indiana and Illinois, except on the east side of Indiana, as well as, what's in the middle there?
Right.
Okay, and the what's the
Aye.
question?
So what were you adding? That was just
Oh,
making
that
sure it was
was,
covered
that
by
was
our
Chris
title.
saying, Mayor Pro Tem saying 2-hour parking along Indiana on the east side.
On
of
the
street.
east side of Indiana and on the west side of Illinois on the park, that would be 2-hour parking.
Okay. I was just checking our title and whether this was in, all these streets were included, okay.
They're included within the addressed zone.
Okay. So the resolution then would be, we should do you've got two motions, for two different areas. We'll basically put all into the resolution, which I should read by title, then you can adopt it, and we'll make all the changes that you've, made.
Sounds good. I'll
And-
follow
and we're
your
leaving
lead.
it up to
Would
the-
you like to read?
and we're leading up to the staff to determine the number of permits and how that mechanics will happen.
Yes, I think so.
Can we call it the Michael Allen Permit Program?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of El Segundo, California designating preferential parking zone number 3, which the resolution will be amended to reflect the two different votes the council took regarding the area designations and our designations. With that, you can.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Thank you.
I came around, guys. Persuasiveness.
Yeah. All right, let's see how it goes. We encourage you all to give us feedback. What's the best way for them to give feedback on this project, Daryl?
Can we just get a report in 6 months?
Yeah, we'll come
Okay,
back.
come back.
Come
Yeah.
back in
6-month
6 months.
All right, we're going to do a quick recess. We'll come back at 7:40, 6 minutes.
So it's,
You're up next. So maybe we get a lot of steam from Steve.
I'm like,
Mancini, Director of Rex and Park.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Boyles and members of the City Council. As you recall, in October 2023, after year-long discussions and meetings with the administrators of the El Segundo Unified School District, staff presented and had approved an amended joint use agreement between the city and the district that memorializes the various supports and services provided from each entity to the other. There were several areas discussed within the negotiation and eventual approval of the JUA. One item that was of particular concern for some council members was the field use and allocation policies and procedures. To that end, council requested that the district deliver a document that showed what user groups were using district facilities and when. Because the district does not have a centralized system for field reservations, this was a challenging task for them to complete. However, the district recently initiated the purchase of a software system that will track such field use moving forward, making it easier for them to respond to these types of informational requests in the future. Staff's understanding is that the software has been purchased and district staff are being trained on it currently. During the past few months, staff has met with administrators at Center Street School to discuss the transfer of scheduling from the school to city staff, effective beginning summer 2024. In addition, all maintenance of Richmond Street School has been taken over by the district, and all local user groups have been notified of the transitions. In addition, I did want to share with the council that the district has given me the dates where they typically schedule their fields, and they are as follows. Summer, they typically schedule in late May, early June. Fall is scheduled in late July, early August. Winter is scheduled in late October, early November, and spring is scheduled in late February and early March. City and district staff will continue to meet regularly to keep communication open in a spirit of cooperation to meet the needs of the El Segundo sports community. And I did just want to remind the council that attached to the report are the district's policies regarding field use and allocation. And that concludes my update, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Mancini. Questions from the council?
Yes, just quick, okay, so late July, August is when decisions are made, correct, for the fall?
Correct.
Okay, but when when are the requests due from the user groups for this field space?
I think I looked in one of the policies there. It sounds like they asked for the policies a couple of weeks before that.
Okay.
Or, I'm sorry, asked for the requests.
I think we just need to make sure that the user groups know exactly when it is, because the district isn't even in session in the beginning of July.
Right. And just to follow up on that point, Councilmember Giroux, we did have a youth sports council meeting about 2 weeks ago. All the user groups attended. There was representation from the district as well. And so we spoke to all the user groups about the sort of changes in this, policy, and that we're all sort of looking to do the same thing, which is sort of share, I don't want to say the burden, but, work together to find space for everybody.
But I said my question is do we determine our fall allocation in July, August, or do we do it at a different time?
We do it around that time, but what Ms. Linz and I have discussed is that we will work together. So
Line it up. Okay, good.
We'll sit down and we will do this together. So it may mean a little negotiation on their end and a little negotiation on our end, but we do plan to do it together.
If it's earlier, it's better, so
Right.
that's fine. I just want to make sure that, because in the end, if the user groups are told and then they don't do it,
Correct.
that's on them.
Absolutely.
That's not on the school, that's not us. They have to be responsible for that.
Right.
So if we are changing our window to align with the districts, and the district the district office is still there, they don't go on summer
Right.
recess. We just have to let our people who we've currently negotiated with, let them know, because we're probably we're probably moving our window up forward.
Right. And so Kim and I just talked about this last week or so. So we're going to sit down and look at what we typically do, and then we're going to meet. Kim and I talk almost weekly. So we're going to sit down and try to determine a schedule that we can share with all of the user groups. They can share with their user groups. We can share with ours, so that we're all on the same page. And the user groups were very happy to hear about these changes, and we're very much looking forward to being able to request space from the district as well.
Good. I just have one last thing and then I'm
Sure.
done, is that I just would like to see, make sure to bring this back and not to vote on again, but in September, say,
update.
okay, how did it all work out? Did everybody get what they needed? Was it all on the up and up? Did we both the city and did we both follow our allocation policies? We got to hold each other accountable on the agreement. That's all. So I just would like to bring that back, just a report from you about how it went.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We're going to be doing some surveys of the user groups as well, just so we can get a better handle of kind of what their issues have been scheduling as far as we're concerned. So we can bring back a report that sort of encompasses all of that. But
Great.
I have a lot of faith we're going to be in a better position.
Thank you.
Council member, I just would clarify on the bottom of page 1 of the policy is the specific dates that the applications are due at the district. It's on the bottom right side, it's page 200 of 218, but it's page 1 of their policy at the bottom.
Did you say, what,
Excuse me.
218 you said?
Yeah. 218. At the yeah, 200 of 218. I'm sorry.
200 of 218.
That's what mine says on the.
And this is their current policy, so it, when we start having these negotiations, it could mean that the district goes back to their board and changes those.
Yeah, I just think it probably needs to line up, because, for example, I know AYSO, like, they start practicing, like, in August right away, right, when you get back, so.
Right.
Anyway, you got it on lock right now,
Got
and
it.
thank you for your work on this.
You're very welcome.
Any other questions, comments? No? Okay, it's a receive and file. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been a lot of work. Thank you. Item 13, establish a special projects administrator classification, part-time, and accompanying basic hourly salary range. Rebecca Reddick, Director of HR, to present. Hi.
Hi, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. The item that we have tonight is an opportunity for us to create a part-time version of a full-time job that we already have, which was created last year in March. It's the Special Projects Administrator position. We have had retirements, we have had resignations recently, and we have had a need to have people come to the city to fill in the gaps until we can run a recruitment or help us with special projects or extra help. And we can't always fill those with a consultant or with a temporary from a staffing service. Most of the time, the kind of help that we need is someone who is a prior CalPERS member or who has experience in local government. So with establishing a part-time special projects coordinator, we would be able to temporarily hire CalPERS members and be in compliance with the rules for the retirement system. And particularly right now, we do have some vacancies in our recreation department that we could use some extra help with. And coming up later this year, we're working very closely with IT and finance and HR. We will be working on launching our ERP project, and we're going to have to backfill some positions to be able to implement the system. So in terms of a fiscal impact, there is no fiscal impact for this item. If departments wanted to use the part-time position, they could use it from salary savings, or in the case of the ERP, we will be budgeting for additional limited-term staff while we're working on that project.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Reddick, any questions? No. Okay. Before us is an item to approve the establishment of the Special Projects Administrator part-time. Do we have a motion to approve?
Also moved.
Pimentel on the first, Perstick on the
Persick second.
second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Then we have a resolution to adopt establishing the basic hourly salary range for the Special Project Administrator. City Attorney, would you please read by title?
Mayor and council, a resolution establishing basic salary ranges for a part-time job classification is ready for adoption.
I would like to move approval.
Pimentel so moved.
Thank you. Second?
Baldino seconds.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 14, establish an ad hoc city council subcommittee to discuss renewal of the tax resolution agreement number 4417 with Chevron USA. Mr. George.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just by way of background, I'm sure you all know that back in October of 1st of 2012, the city entered into a 15-year tax resolution agreement with Chevron USA. The term of the agreement will end in September of 2027. Tonight's item is for discussion and hopefully the establishment of an ad hoc city council subcommittee to discuss the renewal of this tax resolution agreement. Essentially, the subcommittee will work with the city manager's office on, reviewing the current documents, the current agreement, discussing any modifications, and really getting into the details of where we want to go and come the potential renewal of this in 2027. So the request this evening is that you consider appointing 2 city council members to serve on the ad hoc committee.
Mr. George, before we get to that matter, because this is a legal matter, this could be a closed session item, Mr. Hensley, could it not, to establish some objectives as a body before we go into a subcommittee?
Actually, not on this one, there's no property negotiation involved, so no, it's not done publicly.
Okay. One of the,
Let me piggyback
Please.
on that, though. If a part of this, given the amount of property that Chevron has, if usage of those or leases or some of those pieces are part of that, would that make it something that we can discuss in closed session?
Yeah, potentially, or at least parts of it, yes.
Okay.
One of the items that's come up continually is just the deed restrictions, where they are, the extent to which they exist, and they've presented some problems in the past as we work on economic development. So I was going to propose that we discuss this in closed session as a group to establish some objectives, similar to what we did with LAX back in the day before Suzanne and I were on the committee, and then Carol and I, and then appoint 2 people to just work on those objectives over time.
Yeah, with LAX, you were considering, in fact, at times had litigation, and so it was part of resolving those litigation matters. In fact, I think last time with Chevron, there was some dispute, and so part of that went into closed session.
Yeah, it was a civil grand jury, right?
We had, that was one of the issues that came out later. But if there, we'd have to identify these properties and whatnot as far as the restrictions, and you could talk about those in closed session.
Okay. Well, one of the few privileges, and by the way, the city attorney told me that I could be overturned by the council on this, but one of the few privileges the mayor has, one of the very few, is appointing people to subcommittees and committees. So I was going to suggest that we appoint Councilmember Baldino and Councilmember Giroux to the subcommittee and vote on it as a motion, as a body.
Yeah, I'm happy to work on this committee, and I think the first part would just be kind of fact gathering, and then we could report back to council of, here's how we got to where we are, and then take guidance at that point. That's how I think it would run out, because we have plenty of time. I'm glad we're getting ahead of this, but it needs to be worked on, so I'm happy to do it.
As well.
I guess a point of clarification, though, if we have objectives and goals, obviously we probably have 5 different sets of ways we think this would shake out. Some of that's almost a negotiated point. We would have to negotiate those, or we'd have to set those goals or objectives in open session, and then deputize our subcommittee as well as the staff delegation to do that. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Yes.
That's a terrible way to negotiate.
I think the way it's phrased is we're going to have an ad hoc to discuss the renewal of the agreement. And so that can come back as, again, this is what the agreement is, this is what we had before the agreement, and here are some options of which way we can renew or change the agreement or whatever it is. So whatever this ad hoc does, I think it's going to end up with some type of receive and file that will come to council, so that then everyone can give input on, okay, I think this is the direction we should go, and then we can start negotiations, if that makes sense.
Chris, just say it, man.
On the agenda item, I sort of no objection to the nominees for this. I think that it makes perfect sense to have Councilmember Giroux and Councilmember Baldino lead on this. Mine was just sort of, this is a rare opportunity for us to understand sort of the ground rules of it. None of us were here for the first piece, and it was certainly a casualty productive event, given the city manager fled on foot afterward. So I think it's just worth understanding. So maybe that's a part of the initial subcommittee piece of this is letting us know here are all the things that are involved.
Yeah, so
and
we
all
have
those things.
so we have a broad understanding of what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, the last one involved a grand jury, a loss of a city manager,
Well,
and
just to
tears of
clarify,
recrimination.
Since grand juries come up a couple of times, I want to make it really clear that the grand jury determined that there was absolutely no wrongdoing on behalf of any council members or the city with regard to the allegations that a former city manager made. I mean, that was very publicly done, and the grand jury came in, and I sat with them, the city manager at the time, Greg Carpenter. We went through that whole process, and they determined there was absolutely no wrongdoing. So just want to clarify that.
So,
But
quick
I do
question.
like,
I'm
but I
sorry.
do like what you mentioned about like establishing objectives, so that we're all, you know, so when the subcommittee does go out, there's a clear understanding of what those objectives are and how to, and they're negotiating to reach those objectives. But I think all five of us should have a say in what our objectives are. So I like the closed session opportunity, but I'm not sure.
Well, the agreement is pretty, it's kind of lengthy, but it's really kind of simple in a way, in that it is, there's a total dollar amount that Chevron agrees to pay per year, and then they deduct out of that the amounts that they're paying in their taxes. So there's a net amount that the city netted out at the end of the day, and that gets adjusted every year by the CPI. If you want to talk about doing property negotiations, as part of this, then yes, that can go into closed session, and I'll work with the city manager to come up with those designation or the language and whatnot we need, and then you can blend that together, because obviously the money is going to, it's fungible, so.
Did you already move on to Mr. Mayor? I'll second the motion if you.
Yeah, I think I made a motion. Yes, I did, thank you.
I'll second that then.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. But then
Yeah, thank you. We should have done that first. Oh,
I
keep
move
you
to
mad, Tess.
appoint
I'll
Drew Baldino.
No, this
No,
is to
to
approve the
create a-
establishment of an
to
ad hoc
create a
city
subcommittee.
council subcommittee. I'll move approval to establish of an
And
ad
I'll
hoc
second it.
subcommittee. Thank you. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. All right, reverse order, like a lot of things in my life. All right, thank you. Item 15, waiver of special event permit fees, 75% for Juneteenth festival organized by local nonprofit organization, Black and Mayberry. Mrs. Mancini again.
Hello again, Mayor and Council. At the council meeting of January 16th, 2024, the City Council approved a process by which city staff could respond to requests from the community for partial fee waivers for events hosted by their organizations in the city. Several long-standing events, such as the Chamber of Commerce Christmas Parade and the Little League Opening Day Parade, were approved for immediate partial fee waivers based on a pre-established relationship between the city and the sponsoring organizations. A partial fee waiver process was also presented and approved at the council meeting to allow other organizations to seek partial fee waivers for events hosted in the city that require city services or fees. Tonight, I am recommending that the City Council approve a partial fee waiver of 75% to local nonprofit organization Black and Mayberry to host a Juneteenth event in Recreation Park on June 15th, 2024. Black and Mayberry aims to combat racism through the arts and also hosted a Juneteenth event in 2023 in Recreation Park, which was well organized, well attended, and well received by the community. The 75% fee waiver would apply to Recreation Park rental fees, business license fees, vendor fees, and any other fees needed for city services. The expected waiver amount is $3,000. Unfortunately, due to a family emergency, Black and Mayberry board member Denise Harris was unable to attend this evening, but I'm happy to answer any questions that the council might have.
I just have one question. So, the event is going to take place on the 19th on Wednesday?
No, it's on Saturday, the 15th.
Okay, Saturday the 15th. Okay, yeah, because I think some of the concerns was being at Rec Park, we have classes and other activities that are preset, and I just would hate for those classes to be disrupted by one event. So that's my. But on Saturday we're fine.
Yeah, and we'll work with the event organizer and other park users to figure out how we can make it all work.
Okay, any further comments, questions? Someone like to move approval?
Giroux, so moved.
Mandel, second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Thank you, Mrs. Mancy.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll give the city clerk an opportunity to get caught up, and then any reports, Madam Clerk?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. City Treasurer is not here. Councilmember Baldino?
Yeah, Mr. George, you're going to give a Hyperion update, right?
Yes, I will be.
Okay, great. I had the opportunity to go to the Environmental Committee meeting, and I want to give my appreciation to Elias and Tracy Miller-Zarnicki for their continued work on Hyperion. And Carol, I know you've been diligent about keeping on track, and I love that. We'll get a further report from our city manager. They are going to come, they're aiming for April to kind of give a report on what they've been working on. One of the ideas they discussed was this very kind of fee waiver. They want to see if they can add in some kind of like environmental recycling, compostable, some type of element in there. So I said, well, take your idea, come up with it, and present it to council. So I appreciate the good work those folks are doing. And then I wanted to invite the community in our theme of City of Champions. Our high school students are entering CIF tournaments. Tomorrow, you can see the high school boys varsity soccer have their first CIF game here at home. The girls water polo, which I think is undefeated in league, has their first CIF game here at the Aquatic Center. And our high school boys basketball team is going to host the first CIF game here at the high school. So come out, support your Eagles. We're going to get some more rings. This city is on a roll as far as championship athletes. So it's a great fun. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Best of luck to James. Okay, Councilmember Giroux.
Nothing from me. Mr. Baldino covered it all.
Okay, Councilmember Perstock.
Nothing for me, actually.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel.
I'm glad you asked. I am so glad you asked. A few things. One, well, sanitation, we come up next week, but with the large volume of rain on the county side, a number of the drains and sewers were overwhelmed. That did not affect us, fortunately, but there's parts of the county where these are reasonably well maintained, but they had about a 38,000 gallon overflow down from us towards San Pedro. That's basically the size of 1.5 backyard swimming pools. They are, they got all the pumps going as quickly as they can, but that is somewhat unavoidable. We did have our first collective bargaining negotiation meeting in Whittier. They have basically a third of the sanitation staff comes up. Obviously, that's a closed session piece. I can brief that in our next closed session. I will say that their approach is significantly different than ours in how they view public sector employment. Their average tenure for an employee there is 28 years, so the turnover is very low. That sort of distorts a bit of their incentives on how they negotiate. But it was illuminating. There are 19 people who weigh in on those, so it is a somewhat cumbersome process. Disaster Council met last week, which our first meeting with the new emergency manager, who set out sort of some goals, a 6-month plan with some wickets to hit on that. He'll be reporting on that, but stay tuned. There will be invitations to tabletop exercises and rehearsals, and probably it looked like there will be some capital allocation on radios to upgrade some of those ham radio pieces. Those will come before council. I got the opportunity to go to, Chief Avery allowed me to go to the fire department the other day to get a class on the nuts and bolts of how staffing works. So when you actually staff shifts, what goes into that, the different pieces, how those are allocated, what the 74 different spreadsheets look like. God bless them, they keep us all straight. We are replacing that with a new piece of technology, but it was very illuminating, and thank you to the battalion chiefs for letting me intrude on a Friday afternoon for that. I know we got a little bit heavy on enforcement with the police on parking. I will say that their reflex is community policing at its finest, and we had a resident who was hospitalized, and the care they took to make sure that that car was not ticketed because she is alone in the world and no one had the keys to her car, and sort of the little things like that are incredibly impactful, and I will also follow on that with, we had a dad in the area who was hit by an individual in Manhattan Beach in front of his son, and the police department going to his house to reassure the son and bring the dog that found the guy and all those sorts of things. Fantastic work from the police department. Stand by for more stuff on the Green Line. The COG has officially said they're not taking a role on that, but you will get some messaging from our county supervisor about the position she will take on it eventually once Metro decides, and that we look to that coming up. Also, in big ticket items, in the multi-billion-dollar items, Inglewood's transit connector, as well as LAX's transit connector. We're more interested in the Inglewood one because it's our tax dollars directly. They are having some current challenges on the timeline for that transit connector. They think there's some speculation it might go back from 2028 to 2030. I don't suspect that will be the case. However, part of their funding agreement is based on them hitting time benchmarks. And that affects where we have some of the, we have let them have access to some of our programming money, presuming they will hit those wickets. So, Mr. Mayor, that's all.
Thank you. And it was more broadly, it was the region's money, just to be clear, not necessarily the city directly.
not ours.
Yeah.
Portion of our share of that.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. Thank you for that great update. We had a great event where SpaceWorks, which is an offshoot of the Space Force, came to us. It's a really interesting thing where they work on Spear money and they partner with business, and they brought in about 14 entrepreneurs into El Segundo recently. That was incredible. Some of them were actually businesses that are based here or have been based here, like Impulse Space by Tom Mueller, the co-founder of SpaceX. We had Chris was there, and we had a great turnout. A lot of venture funds, a lot of entrepreneurs. It was really good. And then the only other thing I have is SCAG just approved the Southern Cal Green Print, which is really just a digital mapping tool to improve environmentalism and conservation. So more to come on that. It was a long process. That's all I have. City Attorney.
Nothing this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
And City Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I do have a handful of items on Hyperion, so please bear with me. A lot has happened since our last meeting. As you are aware, we did receive via emails, text messages, phone calls, numerous complaints of odors from residents over the past week, particularly on January 29th and 30th. City staff immediately contacted Hyperion leadership, who stated that they did investigate the smell and found everything to be in working order, which I know Elias was helpful in reaching out to Haisang. I reached out to Tracy Minamaid, and everything was fine from their standpoint. No sooner did we get that report from them that we learned afterwards from AQMD that in fact they did issue 2 notices of violation on January 28th and 30th, specifically about those odors. AQMD said the odor on the 28th was caused by the washing of the primary tanks in Battery D, which was done, but of course wasn't told to the upper management. So that's why we got the misinformation. The cleaning on the 30th, there was also cleaning and maintenance on the 30th of certain equipment where they left the doors open in a number of the buildings where a lot of the loading activity takes place, and those areas are pretty stinky. So we do know now where the 29th and the 30th, the excessive odors were coming from. Unfortunately, we had to get that information directly from AQMD. We have followed up with actually Mayor Bass's office, City of LA jurisdiction, and working with her kind of head of public works in her department, Ryan Jackson, who's been extremely helpful, immediately jumped on it, and no sooner did he reply that I got a direct call during my one-on-one with Councilmember Perstick from Barbara Romero, who we haven't heard from in a while, and Tracy Minamaid, who were apologizing profusely. Sorry, it'll never happen again. We've made that contact. We've made it known that we need to continually, they need to continually be transparent with us and inform us of every incident that they think is going to cause some odors. So we feel like we've closed that information gap, at least with them at this point.
And just real quick, shouldn't those cleanings be on a set schedule? And can we not get advance notification?
Yeah, well, in
of
fact,
that schedule, like it's.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine that they're not planned in advance. And if we just
Right.
had that information in advance, we could notify people to say, hey, if you smell something a little bit today, it's going to be because they're doing a cleaning of the thing, but it should just dissipate within the X amount of hours.
Yes,
think
we,
that would go a
we
long
do, you're absolutely right. It's been very difficult to pin them down, but they've, and we will be working on this, but they have told us that cleaning activities at Primary Battery D tanks are slated to begin during the week of February 12th. So we'll certainly, and all this information we'll be putting out on our website. However, the caveat is that supposedly these cleanings are going to take place intermittently between February 12th and through June 6th. So it leaves a pretty significant window there where odors may come, they may not. So we're trying to specifically pinpoint those times, and we'll do the best we can to get that information so that we can pinpoint exactly when that cleaning is going to take place. So right now, they left it a little open-ended.
Okay, sorry, you said
Yes.
you're gonna follow up though to get more specifics on that?
We're going to try.
Because that
yes.
it blew up on that
I
Hyperion
know.
group on Facebook, mostly because there's no notice, the weather was nice,
Right.
people were outdoors, but it smelled bad.
Yeah, I know, yep.
Okay.
And that work, by the way, will be performed Monday through Fridays from 7 to 5. And so they did give us those days. Let me see, okay, so getting back, the city staff and Hyperion ad hoc committee members, okay, no, I already discussed that. Ad hoc committee member and environmental chair Tracy Miller Zarnicki met with LA City Public Works Commissioner Susanna Reyes and Sanitation District Governmental Relations Representative Melissa Reyes to reiterate our residents' experience living near Hyperion and relate our frustration. So 2 more significant contacts that we have through the ad hoc committee, through Tracy's efforts, someone from a Public Works Commissioner, as well as a governmental relations representative. So that was an excellent contact. Yes.
Did that happen after this last NOV or before?
I think it
Okay,
happened
great.
after,
It was
yes.
today. The meeting was today.
Tracy did share with us that they were both empathetic and are diving deeper into the communication issues at Hyperion. So it's really attacking that, again, that communication at multiple levels, even above Barbara Romero, who's the general manager. As I said, they did issue 2 notices of AQM did issue these notice of violations on the 28th and 30th, so they've been a really good partner with us and working closely and keeping us informed. AQMD also on January 24th held a hearing board meeting about the order of abatement related to the odors, and because there's still requirements due from Hyperion that were supposed to happen by June 24, the board did extend Hyperion's compliance deadline from January 31st to August 30th. But no new requirements were added to the abatement order. The primary remaining work is replacing the tank covers at Battery D, and we knew that. And the next AQMD board hearing is tentatively scheduled to be held on July 31st. Finally, on February 2nd, Hyperion's air quality monitoring website did experience a service outage between 4:30 and 5:30, but only the display website was impacted, and where the fence line monitoring system did remain fully operational and no data was lost. So we're getting information like that, pretty detailed information on certain aspects. Finally, and this was interesting as part of the phone call I had with Barbara Romero and Tracy, was that because of the extreme storm weather we've had the last few days, it did cause an increase of flow in the plant to approximately 1 billion gallons into Hyperion, where they can handle 800 million. So it was an excessive amount. So it affected the pumping system. They had to bring in additional staff, and they also had to utilize the 1 mile outflow pipeline for 45 minutes, which under their permit, they can use that outflow for 45 minutes. So they did work within that. And, it basically discharges treated water, but it did relieve the overage. So that was another incident that happened. That's how they were affected by the storm. That's it.
And then just on a follow-up with that, they did notify the county health department.
Yes.
That it's up to the county health department to notify the public.
Right.
Which I don't think that happens.
Yeah, in terms
So
of posting signs out there, or, you know, that's.
Yeah, so that's at the responsibility of the county health
Right.
department. So I think at this juncture, we also need to follow up with the county health department to say, hey, when you're notified of something, you really need to let the populace know. Now, thankfully, not many people would be in the ocean because there was a major storm, but there's probably some surfers out there that got exposure. So I think it's our due diligence to notify, go reach out to the county health department and say, hey, why weren't you notifying the populace? Because what it is if they can release it out into the 1 mile mark for 45 minutes, stop for a while, and then do it again for 45 minutes. So there's no end of how many 45-minute allotments. So it could be 10 times within a day, 24-hour period. We don't know what that is. So it's a little bit of a bait and switch here. So we just need to really make sure that the county health department's doing their due diligence to notify the populace that the water's not safe.
You could certainly see something out there during that period.
And I was out there and I took a picture and I sent it to the subcommittee and I said, obviously it's more than just 45 minutes worth of junk that's going out there.
So that's it for the Hyperion report. Thank you.
Thank you. We're adjourned.